Oi, fellow comrades, this is Squidtard here, back with another college football Squidtard Sports video. We are 1 month away from the college football season, or at least 1 month away. Very, very close. So, considering I'm a Tennessee fan, I thought this would be an appropriate video. So, we're nearing the decade, or nearing the end of the decade of 2010 through 2019, and starting a new decade in 2020. For the football season. So I thought the best thing I could do right now would be to go back through and just look at this decade for the Tennessee Vols. Now, there have been plenty of ups and downs for this season, and of course everyone knows there have been plenty of ugly, absolutely just ugly losses this season. So I thought in this video I would cover some of those losses and do a top 10 list of what I think is the top 10 worst Tennessee losses in the decade. Now, there are, of course, plenty, and this is totally based off of my opinion. If you guys want me to list the best, I will do that later on. I think I'll make a video about that tomorrow. But anyway, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with this. I'll start with the bad, and then we end it off with the good. So, again, this is totally in my opinion. You guys feel free to make your own list. And by the way, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. So without further ado, here we go. These are the top 10 worst Tennessee losses of the decade. Before I list off my number 10 here, I'm going to go ahead and say that some of these losses aren't based on how big the blowout is or how big one team crushed Tennessee. This is more based on how brutal the loss was, in my opinion, and how much of a mental scar it left on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off here with Florida of 2015. Now, Florida in the 2015 loss is probably the most brutal loss I think we've ever taken to Florida in this decade. For many years, Tennessee has just been mere moments away from beating Florida, and I think this is the absolute peak of that. To go from looking like you're going to completely beat them to them getting that final touchdown they needed and missing the game-winning field goal, it was just an absolutely just a horrible moment in Tennessee football history, and one that many Tennessee fans would want to forget. So I just got through explaining how most of these losses aren't taken or just based on the biggest L's. But in case you don't already know, here's another example of that. Texas A&M of 2016. Tennessee in this game looked like they might have had it. I mean, you go into College Station. Now, a lot of people predicted us to lose this game, and both of these teams are riding high. In fact, this was a top 10 game. One top 10 team versus another in the SEC. It was a huge game, and it was a fun one to watch for sure. But Tennessee had 6 turnovers in this game. I gotta say, I give the Vols a lot of credit for trying until the end, but, you know, however, it really doesn't matter because they ended up losing. Now, some people, just based on performance in today, would think otherwise, but in this game, it really looked like Tennessee had a chance and just kept on moving forward, and everyone thought that Tennessee just might be able to push through and persevere in this game, going into overtime, and then just all the crazy things that happened. But of course, that interception at the end of the game was what costed Tennessee, and we ended up losing that game. I think we finished out with 7 turnovers, and that 7th turnover just happened to be the game-winning turnover. Absolutely just brutal loss if you're a Tennessee fan. Now, as for performance-wise, Tennessee fought through. Regardless of the turnovers, Tennessee fought a hard game, but it was just a sad thing to go through as a fan. That is for sure. I'll be honest with everyone here, I became a football fan long after this game finished, and to be honest, I don't remember much about this game, but I do know that it is probably one of the most brutal losses Tennessee has ever taken in this decade, of course. And that would be Oregon of 2010. Now, both Oregon 2010 and 2013 could be put right here, but I chose 2010 because, of course, Oregon went to play Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. And from what I remember, there was quite a lot of hype going into this game, and only for it to really turn into a one-sided dud of a game. To be honest, I couldn't tell if Oregon had more points or broken tackles. Sad thing is, it really did look to be a good game, and Tennessee, for most of the first half, was up 13-3, and then just happened to screw it all up. After that 13, they were leading by a good margin for most of the first half, and then after that, they didn't even score a single point. So, I had to put this on this list. Even if I didn't experience this game firsthand, I know I had to put it on this list because, let's be real, it belongs. If you've been watching my channel for a little while now, you're probably expecting for me to put this game somewhere on this list, and no, I'm not talking about the game you think I am, but I am talking about one that some people might have on your minds, and that would be BYU of 2019, and this one had to be included somewhere. It was just a rather ugly performance the entire game, and honestly, there's not really a good thing I can say about this one. By the end of it, Tennessee just looked completely drained. I gotta give credit to a few players that really tried, including our wide receivers Marquez Callaway and Jawan Jennings. But hey, at least we won. Oh, never mind. The real gap in performance here showed when the game went into overtime, and Tennessee at that point just looked completely just swallowed up. They didn't have any answers to BYU's offense, and at that point BYU was just able to push the ball in and win that football game. Just an absolutely sad performance to witness, and golly, it's definitely not one I want to look back on, and even caused me to do a rant. I really never want to remember this one again. But there are worse games, of course, in this decade, which we will get to right now. Now, this is another one I don't remember firsthand, but that doesn't mean I don't recall what happened in this game. Vanderbilt of 2012 will forever be one of the most embarrassing losses to Vanderbilt ever. It's shameful to lose to Vanderbilt at all, but losing to them by over 20 points is just honestly sad in a variety of ways. An overall just destructive performance, and I don't even know how in the world we got to this point. Now, Vanderbilt was a pretty good team this year. I believe they finished out 8-4 or had 8 or 9 wins with James Franklin as their head coach, which is a pretty good head coach. But that is no excuse to get just completely downright destroyed like this. It doesn't matter where you're playing. There's no excuse for you to lose to your in-state rival, and this is just an absolutely perfect example of that. I don't know what in the world happened in this game, and honestly, it's just one that I'd rather never look back on again. Now, of course, the future is good for Tennessee, but, this is one of those games that I believe that a lot of Vanderbilt fans are going to be talking about until the day we die. Now, there are a few other Vanderbilt losses we've taken before, and I can include those on here too, on number 6, but I think this is the one that really sticks out to me just because this is the one and only blowout loss we've taken to Vanderbilt. I guess you could include 2017, but I wouldn't really consider that a blowout. Either way, Vanderbilt 2012 is really the game that belongs on this list because of how just a shameful performance it was. Speaking of shameful losses, there isn't anything much more shameful than losing to your rival who you've dominated for the past 3 decades. And I'm talking about none other than Kentucky of 2011. Now, I could put 2017 here, since that is the only other loss we've taken to Kentucky in the past 3 decades, but I think this is the prime example of what happens when you don't show up to a game against your rival. This game was an absolutely pitiful performance by Tennessee and by Kentucky too. It was just a pitiful game to watch. In fact, most of the points were only scored in the 4th quarter, and the only points that Tennessee scored were in the 4th quarter, being 7-10 the final score. What a sad performance. I don't know if that's just an excellent performance of defense or a pathetic performance of offense. I'm sure somebody in the comment section can give their thoughts on that. I don't really have anything. I really don't have anything else to say about this game. Y'all got me stuttering. I'm so mad about this game's performance. Now, of course, I'm not actually fuming, but looking back at this, I just don't. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I really don't. I don't like it. Get this off my screen right now. How is it whenever we play LSU, we just always happen to get embarrassed? Now, this game was just heartbreaking, and honestly to me, it's forever a symbol of Derek Dooley's coaching career. I'm sure every Tennessee fan older than the age of 10 knows how this game went and curses themselves every time they think of it. How do you have 13 men on the field on the final play of the game? It just doesn't make sense to me. You are the reason why we costed, or basically Derek Dooley is the reason why this game was an L for Tennessee, and that's all there is to it. Now, I really hated how this game went, and honestly, it's just something that I sure do hate, and I'm sure every Tennessee fan can agree with me on that. And to be honest, there really isn't much else to say about this game either. Everybody else knows that as soon as you look at this game, the only thing that you can think of is that final play and that final performance that Tennessee gave, and just to lose this game in that fashion is just absolutely just heart-wrenching. So I think that's really all I can say about that. And by the way, before you rush to the comment section, heart-wrenching is a word. It's heartbreaking and heart-wrenching at the same time. There you go. I hated this game. Everything about it. It seems in this game, Tennessee just completely forgot what defense was. This one was just absolutely brutal for me. In case you don't know already, I'm talking about Alabama of 2016. Because I sure didn't see any defense out there. Oh golly, what in the world is this game? This is a horribly disappointing performance that made me throw up in my mouth. Of course, credit to Alabama. Alabama did actually go out there and play a good game. Tennessee's offense tried, but didn't do so well, and Tennessee's defense they didn't even get off the bus. I don't even know what in the world you could call this game. Maybe just a failure on the defensive coordinator side, or just a failure on the defense in general, or just failure in general. Whatever the deal is, this was an awful performance, and I never want to look back on this game again. This game left a complete hole in my heart and left me depressed for a week. I never want to have to feel that feeling again, especially since Tennessee was number 9 going into this game. That was the first and last time I've ever seen them be in the top 10, and of course after this game they've never even been close to the top 10. Not even once. So alright, well, if you're a Georgia fan, I'm sure that you knew this one was coming. This one has just become a meme on my channel. I'm talking about Georgia of 2017, the 41-0 beatdown. I feel bad for every single fan that bought tickets to this game. Every single fan. Of course, unless you're a Georgia fan, then I'm just mad at you. It's hard to find something more embarrassing than this. I really just downright hated this performance. I mean, how does this even happen? It's one thing when you only score a touchdown against Kentucky, but it's a whole nother thing when you fail to score a single point against Georgia in your own stadium. Absolutely just one of the most awful performances I ever seen. I knew this game was over as soon as the game started when Quentin Dormady threw an interception to literally start off the game. How does that happen? I don't know. Either way, this is one of those games where I just look back on and shake my head every single time. And this is one of the only 2 games that I'm still hearing about to this very day on a daily basis. And the other one, I'm sure you know. It's coming up right now. Well, I knew something like this was bound to happen one day in the history of the Tennessee Vols, but wow, did I not expect for it to be now. This game was just one of the most atrocious performances I've ever had to witness as a Tennessee fan, and by far is just the absolute worst performance I've ever seen. This is the only game I've ever seen where the Tennessee team just looked completely destroyed for the entirety of the game. It's like the Tennessee fans, and well, of course the Tennessee fans showed up. The fans always show up, and that was the only part of the stadium that did show up on that day. Of course, other than the other team, which, of course, Georgia State went out there and completely bodied Tennessee throughout the entire game. There is absolutely no excuse to lose a game like this, and I hate to bring it up, but let's be honest, it'll be brought up until the end of time. Until we beat every single team in the history of the NCAA, there's no way that there's going to be a team that's not going to bring this up. So expect to hear about this for a very, 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 very long time. And yeah, that just about wraps up our list here. So there we go. Those are, in my opinion, the top 10 worst Tennessee losses of the decade, of course, bearing from 2010 to 2019. If you guys have any other ideas or just want to express your thoughts on the games that I've already listed, feel free to express your thoughts in the comment section. I will look at them and I will gladly give them a heart if I can. So make sure you give the video a like, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got more sports content coming up for you guys later on. As always, power to Tardaria and go Vols. I'll see you all in the next video.